Sure.
Here's section 1 fully written with a minimum of 700 words. #### Section 1. The Galactic Council convenes. The Grand Convocation Hall of the Galactic Council was a monument to millennia of diplomacy and conflict, carved into the crystalline heart of an ancient asteroid that orbited the neutral star of Zarnath Prime. Representatives from over 1,000 worlds were gathered, their varied physiologies and technologies adding to the surreal atmosphere. Towering insectoids from the Harathian swarm buzzed nervously next to the stoic stone-skinned Bralkai. The amphibious Nithari swirled in their aquatic pods, observing through liquid-filled domes. The tension in the chamber was so thick, it might as well have been another atmospheric layer. High Chancellor Vrethkael, a serpentine being with iridescent scales, called the session to order. Counselors, we convene under emergency protocol. A matter of grave significance has reached us from the edge of Terran space. A hush settled as the central holoprojector flared to life. The counselors leaned in as the recorded message began to play, projected in the common galactic tongue. A towering Krith Dominion warlord, clad in spiked crimson armor, stood before a backdrop of starships and banners. His voice rumbled like the collapse of tectonic plates. I am Supreme General Vroth of the Krith Dominion. As of this cycle, we claim the Terran homeworld, Earth, as property of the Dominion. Their defenses are primitive, their fleets non-existent. They will kneel, or they will burn. Let this be known to all. Gasps and growls echoed around the chamber. The Krith Dominion was known as brutal conquerors, but they typically preyed on weaker civilizations within the galactic periphery, not planets under observation by the Council. Earth had long been catalogued as a developing world with erratic but modest advancements in spaceflight and warfare. Councillor Threx of the Siltari, a skeletal arachnoid species, clattered her mandibles. They dare to invade Earth? That savage world. Councillor Marek of the Bralkai rumbled, voice like grinding stone. They must be mad. No sane species would court disaster by disturbing the Terrans. Several younger counselors exchanged confused glances. The humans were primitive by galactic standards, no faster-than-light capability, no planetary shields, and their militaries were decades behind even minor galactic powers. Yet the undercurrent of dread among the elder races was undeniable. A soft but firm voice interrupted. You do not understand because you have not watched them closely, said Elder Javeroin of the Jacquerii, an ancient avian species whose feathers shimmered with faint starlight. The Elder's eyes, like twin voids, scanned the hall. Earth is a crucible where death and evolution hold a constant dance. Those creatures did not rise by luck. Their planet is a forge, and they are its blades. A scoff came from Councillor Venrix, a reptilian diplomat from the Year Dominion. With respect, Elder, the Terrans have no fleets, no planetary defense grid. They still burn chemical propellants to launch crude rockets. What threat could they possibly pose to the Krith? Javeroin's beak clicked. Your focus is narrow. You judge them by ships and shields, but their true weapon is chaos. On a world of constant war, famine, and catastrophe, they adapted to survive. They are predators, apex predators. Their greatest strength is not technology, but unpredictability. The council chamber buzzed with rising conversation as the significance of the Elder's words sank in. Footage of Earth's violent history flashed on smaller holodisplays, world wars, revolutions, insurgencies, even footage of primitive tribes wielding little more than sharpened sticks against technologically superior invaders, and somehow prevailing. But they are still fractured, said Councillor Lana, an aquatic being swaying in her gravity-bound aquatic pod. Their planet is divided by nation-states. The Krith will conquer them piecemeal. Javeroin gave a slow, predatory grin. When the fires burn brightest, the pack unites. The High Chancellor interjected, the matter before us now is whether the Council will intervene or allow the Krith to proceed. Debate erupted. Some races, particularly the more peaceful or younger species, argued that intervention was necessary to prevent a massacre. Others believed the Krith would win, albeit at a cost. A few, like the Jacquerii, advocated for non-intervention, not out of cruelty, but curiosity and respect for the Terrans' capacity to fight back. Finally, the High Chancellor called for a vote. The majority agreed on a non-intervention directive, citing Earth's current classification as an emerging species. The galaxy would watch, but not act. As the councillors filed out, Elder Javeroin lingered in the chamber, eyes fixed on the projected image of Earth, swirling blue and green amidst the void. Softly, to no one in particular, the Elder murmured, "May the stars have mercy on the Krith, for the humans will not." Would you like me to continue with Section 2 next?
Sure.
Here's Section 2 with a minimum of 700 words. Section 2. The Krith invasion begins. Above the blue marble of Earth, the Krith Dominion fleet materialized with a silent ripple of warped space. The armada was massive, 20 dreadnoughts, scores of cruisers, and legions of dropships, all bristling with weapons designed to pulverize worlds. Against the backdrop of Earth's serene clouds and oceans, the Krith war machines looked like jagged knives poised to carve flesh from bone. Inside the flagship, Dominator's Claw, General Vroth stood with his arms crossed, flanked by his lieutenants. His crimson exosuit pulsed faintly with bioaugments, and his 4 black eyes stared down at the blue planet below. "Primitive," Vroth growled, fangs bared in disdain. "No orbital defenses. No fleets to intercept us. They will submit within a cycle." He signaled to his communications officer. Moments later, every major human broadcast network, from military frequencies to civilian channels, was hijacked. The Krith general appeared on screens across Earth, on television sets, smartphones, and monitors, from crowded urban centers to isolated villages. "I am General Vroth of the Krith Dominion. Your planet is now under our control. Surrender immediately, or face annihilation. Resist, and you shall be purged from existence." For a few seconds, there was silence across the globe. Then the human response began filtering in not from a single world government, but from thousands of fragmented voices. In Washington, D.C., London, Moscow, Beijing, and beyond, military leaders barked orders. Defense grids were activated, jets scrambled, and missiles readied. Yet it was the public's reaction that truly surprised the Krith. Instead of fear, the humans responded with humor. Social media exploded with memes ridiculing the Krith's appearance, comparisons to bugs, lizards, or cosplayers with bad taste. In war rooms, human generals exchanged grim smiles, battle-hardened veterans recognizing a challenge that demanded every ounce of cunning. Vroth's jaw tightened. "Arrogant vermin," he hissed. "Begin the landings." The first wave of Krith dropships screamed through Earth's atmosphere, targeting major population centers and strategic military installations. The Krith expected shock and awe to break human resistance quickly. Instead, they were greeted with chaos, and not the kind they were prepared for. In the streets of New York City, Krith soldiers disembarked onto concrete jungles. They advanced through abandoned streets only to trigger explosions beneath their feet, homemade bombs crafted from fuel, nails, and scrap metal. In the suburbs of Berlin, Krith patrols were ambushed by human fighters hiding in alleyways, armed with outdated ballistic weapons and Molotov cocktails. In the jungles of Southeast Asia, entire Krith squads vanished into the dense foliage, never to re-emerge. The Krith's superior technology was of little comfort when guerrilla tactics and terrain turned every human into a hidden predator. Reports flooded back to the Dominator's Claw. "General, multiple platoons encountering improvised traps, chemical weapons, flame projectors, crude explosives," snarled one officer. Another added, "Resistance fighters are striking and vanishing before we can lock onto their positions. Our scanners are jammed, likely by primitive but effective electronic interference." Vroth's claws dug into the command console. "They should be cowering," he growled. "Why are they fighting like cornered beasts?" Back on the ground, humanity's resistance was relentless. Civilians who had never fired a gun before took up arms alongside seasoned veterans. Former rivals and divided nations coordinated in ways the Krith hadn't anticipated. Hackers disrupted Krith comms networks, spoofed targeting systems, and flooded enemy interfaces with loops of confusing data. The Krith, bred for frontal assaults and overwhelming firepower, were ill-suited for the dirty, unpredictable nature of asymmetric warfare. In a ruined neighborhood of Tokyo, a Krith squad advanced through the rubble, only for a seemingly derelict building to explode, burying them in tons of steel and concrete. In the ruins of an airbase in Texas, human soldiers wielded captured Krith plasma rifles, having reverse-engineered enough of the tech in mere days to make them operable. Vratha's frustration mounted. "Deploy the shock troops," he ordered, unleashing heavily armored Krith berserkers meant for close-quarters slaughter. But even they struggled. In the shadowed alleyways and forests, humans fought like rabid wolves, ambushing from hidden positions, striking swiftly, then melting back into the terrain. Worse still, Krith morale began to erode. They whispered of human packs who moved silently in the dark, dismembering patrols and vanishing before reinforcements arrived. Stories circulated among the ranks of entire Krith outposts overrun by humans wearing scavenged armor, using Krith weapons against them. In the skies, human pilots pushed their outdated jets beyond limits, ramming Krith dropships or luring them into deadly storms. Naval fleets, outmatched technologically, used clever positioning, hiding in fjords and shallow waters to ambush Krith vessels from below with submarine-launched missiles. As Vratha's forces faltered, his rage curdled into something far worse: doubt. For the first time, he realized these Terrans weren't behaving like prey. They were something else entirely. Back aboard the Galactic Council's observation relay, hidden in the outer system, Counselor Jdrex watched the feeds with disbelief. This isn't war," she murmured. "It's slaughter." Javeruin, watching the same footage, allowed himself a slow, knowing nod. "No," he whispered. "It's survival." The humans had been given an ultimatum, and in return, they had unleashed a storm. Would you like me to continue directly into Section 3? Absolutely. Here's Section 3 with a minimum of 700 words. Hashtag Section 3. Humanity fights back. The tides had turned. What began as an invasion had morphed into a brutal war of attrition, and the Krith were no longer the unquestioned predators. On every continent, the humans weren't just surviving. They were adapting, striking back with a ferocity and ingenuity that sent ripples through the galaxy. In the dense forests of South America, a Krith convoy trudged through thick undergrowth, their thermal scanners unable to penetrate the dense jungle canopy. Suddenly, explosions erupted from all sides, primitive claymore-style traps laced with Krith plasma cells salvaged from prior skirmishes. Human fighters emerged from the green shadows, wearing patchwork armor crafted from Krith exosuits, their eyes burning with a lethal resolve. The Krith were shocked by how quickly humans learned. Within days, the Terrans had figured out how to repurpose captured plasma rifles, bypass Krith shields with kinetic weaponry, and even hack into their tactical networks using laptops and hand-wired transmitters. Above the stratosphere, small Krith frigates patrolled Earth's orbit, watching for any sign of retaliation. None expected human operatives to board them. But somewhere over the Pacific, a modified human shuttle, barely space-worthy, rammed into one of the frigates. Out poured a team of special forces, donning jury-rigged exosuits cannibalized from Krith materials. Armed with Krith weapons, they stormed the ship, moving with the brutal efficiency of hunters culling prey. The Galactic Council, observing from afar, could hardly believe the footage streaming into their chambers. One counselor replayed a video of human insurgents storming a Krith garrison with nothing but knives, silenced rifles, and sheer nerve. The garrison fell in under an hour. "Impossible," whispered Counselor Alana. "Their tactics resemble predatory packs." Elder Javeruin nodded gravely. "Humans are pack predators with an unmatched instinct for war. They are not governed by caution like us. They adapt to threat with violence and creativity." Back on the battlefield, the Krith found themselves battling a ghost. Civilians, insurgents, and professional soldiers formed an unspoken alliance. Local militias coordinated with global militaries. Entire nations funneled resources into crafting hybrid weapons. Krith plasma cores were merged with human railgun tech, creating crude but devastating handheld cannons. In the ravaged streets of Paris, Krith walkers, towering biomechanical monstrosities, strode forward to crush resistance. But humans lured them into narrow boulevards, detonating charges that collapsed buildings onto the war machines. As the smoke cleared, human teams swarmed the wreckage, scavenging parts and leaving booby traps for the next Krith unit that ventured near. Even the oceans were no refuge. Krith landing craft approaching coastal regions were ambushed by human submarines using outdated torpedoes in unconventional ways, attaching them to drifting fishing vessels that were remote-controlled, baiting the Krith into tight quarters before detonating. In space, the humans had begun retrofitting salvaged Krith ships. While primitive in FTL technology, they were fast learners when it came to brute force engineering. Human engineers, with little more than duct tape, welding gear, and grim determination, got broken Krith drop ships airborne again, enough to launch orbital boarding parties or drop explosives onto Krith positions from the upper atmosphere. General Vroth sat seething aboard the Dominator's Claw, clutching a cracked datapad. His elite shock troops were being overwhelmed. Even the air itself was turning against them. Human chemists were weaponizing basic industrial chemicals to create toxic gases tailored to Krith respiratory systems. Entire Krith outposts succumbed to what the humans wryly referred to as DIY warfare. How can they be doing this? Vroth growled to his lieutenants. They are primitives. But in his gut, he knew better. He had underestimated not just their capacity for violence, but for invention. These Terrans were chaos incarnate. No matter what tactic the Krith employed, the humans countered it with savage brilliance. Back at the Galactic Council chamber, disbelief gave way to morbid respect. The High Chancellor rubbed his temples. If they can repurpose Krith warships, he said cautiously, they may soon possess space-faring capabilities. Councillor Threx nodded grimly. They are no longer confined to their world. Javeruin's feathers fluffed slightly. You all see now. You see what we ancient ones feared. They were never a simple species of farmers or traders. Their entire history is one of war. You gave them the tools of the stars, and they forged weapons from them. Footage displayed on the council's screens showed human strike teams boarding yet another Krith battleship, disabling its engines before piloting it into the heart of the Krith ground base near Johannesburg, turning the enemy's own vessel into a meteor of fire and steel. Earth was aflame, but it was not collapsing. It was roaring back. In the shadows of every ruined city and in every forest glade, humans were learning the Kritha's weaknesses. Their armor had blind spots. Their ships had vulnerabilities to crude electromagnetic pulses. Their command structure, rigid and hierarchical, crumbled in the face of Earth's decentralized, adaptive resistance. More importantly, the humans were showing no sign of surrender. Each Krith defeat emboldened them. They were not fighting for territory or glory or resources. They were fighting for survival, and humans, when faced with extinction, were terrifyingly efficient. The Krith came expecting to fight prey. Instead, they had awakened predators. Would you like me to continue directly with Section 4? Sure. Here's Section 4 with a minimum of 700 words. Hashtag Section 4, The Aftermath and Galactic Reckoning. The once pristine hull of the Krith flagship, Dominator's Claw, now floated crippled above Earth, gutted by internal explosions and human saboteurs. Fires raged inside its shattered corridors, the atmosphere venting into space through ruptured bulkheads. From the burning wreckage, escape pods jettisoned in disorganized streams, carrying what remained of Vrotha's once proud officers and soldiers. On the surface below, in war-torn cities and scarred countrysides, humanity stood bloodied but unbroken. Smoke still rose from ruined buildings, but it mingled with cheers and the rumble of human tanks repurposed with scavenged Krith plasma turrets. Above, the sky was littered with falling Krith debris, illuminating the night with streaks of fire. In the ashes of London, General Carter of the United Allied Forces stood atop a makeshift command post, watching Krith prisoners being herded into containment zones by multinational troops. His uniform was scorched, and his face bore the weary lines of weeks spent in combat, but his eyes held a hard, satisfied gleam. "They thought we'd roll over," he muttered to his second-in-command, Captain Ramos, "but we made them bleed for every inch." Reports flooded in from around the world. Krith war machines had been destroyed or captured. In Siberia, a Krith dreadnought had been commandeered by Russian forces who turned its guns on retreating Krith infantry. In the deserts of North Africa, local militias rode scavenged Krith hovercrafts, cutting down fleeing enemy troops. In the Pacific, naval crews repurposed damaged Krith submersibles, launching attacks from below the waves. And above all, Earth's skies were now dotted with hybrid Krith-human vessels, piloted by soldiers who only weeks prior were grounded by Earth's lack of advanced space travel. Now, humans orbited their own planet, armed with alien technology they had learned to manipulate far faster than the Galactic Council ever imagined possible. The Council, watching the entire conflict unfold in real time, convened once more in the Grand Convocation Hall. Silence dominated the room, the weight of what they had witnessed rendering even the most outspoken counselors speechless. Chancellor Vrethkael broke the stillness. The Krith fleet annihilated. Their ground forces routed. His serpentine eyes narrowed. And the humans now control Krith war assets. Counselor Venrix, who once mocked humanity as primitive, sat rigid. How could they turn a hopeless defense into a decisive victory? Elder Javeruin's voice was soft but resolute. Because you judged them by the wrong measures. Humans are not just warriors, they are survivors. Their ingenuity is born from adversity. To face extinction is, for them, an old song. The counselors gazed at holographic feeds displaying Earth. The blue planet shimmered beneath drifting wreckage, surrounded by scavenged Krith warships now bearing crudely painted Terran insignias. Across the globe, resistance fighters, soldiers, and civilians alike stood victorious, unified by the shared trauma and triumph of repelling a galactic invasion. High Chancellor Vrethkael exhaled slowly. The Terrans now possess reverse-engineered Krith plasma weaponry, anti-gravity technology, and crude FTL drives. If they fully unlock the secrets of these ships, they will join the stars, Javeruin finished. And they will not come as supplicants. Counselor Jthrek shivered, recalling the brutal ambushes, improvised tactics, and raw ferocity humanity displayed. What happens when they are no longer confined to their world? The chamber darkened as a new feed displayed the largest hybrid vessel, an amalgamation of human ingenuity and Krith engineering, rising from Earth's atmosphere, its hull patched with salvaged metals, Terran flags waving from its stern. "They will remember," Javeruin said gravely. The Krith made sure of that. On Earth, General Carter gathered world leaders and military commanders in a secure bunker. "We have the tools to go beyond Earth now," he said, gesturing at data streaming from captured Krith computers. FTL drives, weapons that can level cities, and ships capable of crossing the stars. President Liu of the Pan-Asian Coalition leaned forward. "Do we stay and rebuild? Or do we make sure this never happens again?" No one spoke for a moment. Then, Captain Ramos grinned. "We send a message." Back in space, the battered Dominator's claw drifted helplessly, broadcasting distress signals. But there would be no rescue. From the shadow of Earth's moon, one of humanity's newly commandeered warships accelerated toward the crippled vessel. Human pilots, clad in a mix of Terran military gear and Krith armor plates, armed their salvaged plasma cannons. On the bridge, Vrotha's eyes widened as he realized the grim resolve behind the approaching vessel. No, they wouldn't. The humans fired. The Dominator's claw disintegrated under concentrated plasma fire, its remains swallowed by the cold void. Back at the Galactic Council, silence reigned. Javeruin's feathers ruffled slightly. The Krith underestimated Earth. We must decide quickly. Do we welcome them or prepare for them? High Chancellor Vrethkael steepled his claws. And if we do neither? Javeruin's black eyes reflected the spinning image of Earth. Then we will become their next lesson. The stars had shifted. Humanity, once prey, had risen from the ashes, ready to step into the wider galaxy. And the galaxy, watching in stunned silence, finally understood. You do not invade Earth and walk away unscathed. Would you like me to also create an epilogue or character profiles for this story?